I told the coaches, it's not ugly, but it is an arrogance that you believe if we play the worst team on our schedule or the best team on our schedule, we're still going to press both of them. From game to game, we're not going to decide whether we press based on the opponent. The opponent's going to understand that regardless, they're coming with what they come with every game, no matter what. And sometimes that means you're going to lose early in the year. Particularly, I'm committed to playing a bunch of guys. I'm going to play number 11 and number 12, and sometimes they're not quite ready. But the only way they're going to get ready is if we throw them out there a little bit. Overall, it's been successful for us because eventually we build that depth that we want to have toward the end of the year.
Welcome to the JAMODI Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
Today we're joined by the head boys basketball coach at East Hall High School in Georgia, Coach Dix. Coach Dix has been at East Hall for 25 years, 18 as a head coach. He's one of Georgia's most accomplished high school coaches with over 400 career wins. He's led the Vikings to 6 regional titles, 6 state championship appearances, and a state title in 2005. He's known for his high-energy coaching style and strong player relationships. Coach Dix also found success during a 4-year stint at Collins Hill, where he earned 3 playoff appearances. His return to East Hall in 2022 marked a homecoming for a coach deeply respected for building championship-level programs and mentoring young athletes on and off the court. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at JAMODI Podcast.
Coaches, we are all searching for ways to better evaluate players in order to give meaningful feedback. Over 15 years ago, I put together a test called the JAMODI Skill Rating. The JSR takes players through a series of tests involving basketball skill or athleticism, giving them 1 rating at the end. Their JSR rating will give you clarity on what needs to be discussed with players and parents on areas they need to focus on improving. I test our players at least 4 times each year. They're able to compete against each other, past players' scores, and most importantly, their past performances. If you'd like to start testing your athletes, email me at jamodipodcast@gmail.com for more information.
Man, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
How many years has it been now?
We met in, Dallas, Texas, at the PGC clinic.
Yep.
And that it's probably been 8, maybe 10 years.
Yeah, I thought it was about a decade. Yeah, a decade. So I got one question for you that I have to ask, and the question is, are you still pressing?
Absolutely. Hey, is it daytime right now?
I do it. I
know nothing else, man. I don't know anything else, man.
I've always admired coaches like you. Kenny Hoffpower in the Dallas-Fort Worth area is a guy that is very similar. And recently, I mean, this isn't funny, but within the last 1 or 2 years, he had a heart attack and then had to have surgery and went through a hard time with that. But then some of the coaches in his group text are texting him and they said, "Coach, how you feeling? You doing okay?" And he texted, "Still pressing." And that's like, I think when it's in your DNA, when it's in your blood, like you said, there's just no other way.
Yeah. I have tried. She's like that old girlfriend. You just keep coming back to her, man.
What is it about pressing that draws you to it? What are the advantages that you find by doing that?
For me, the biggest thing is the aggressiveness. I want my teams to play aggressively. And, like this right here, attack mode all game, I enjoy the aggressive part of it. I also enjoy the fact that I'm able to play a bunch of kids because I know coaches who do it who are very successful, but I just struggle with having a bench over there with 12 kids sitting there and, they're not engaged because they know that first 6 are going to play and nobody else is getting in. And, I've just never been able to do it that way. So that's created my mindset that I want to be able to play 10 or 12 guys. And And it just hadn't changed. It just hasn't changed.
I appreciate that. And I think one of the advantages I found from, and sadly, Coach, I haven't been pressing consistently the last few years, went to a pressure 3-2 zone that did allow us to play fewer guys. And for that team, fewer guys was necessary.
Right.
But also it was kind of like pressing. What I loved about when we did do that was how we were different and how I felt like the other team had to prepare for us more than we had to prepare for them. But one thing I do miss about it is the ability to get that deep into the bench for every player to believe that any given night their name not might be called, but will be called. I think you get a different level of buy-in from the guys.
Yeah, I think so. I tell my guys, like this year, we're going to dress 17, and I'm telling them that first 12, you're going. Now that's last 5. They're probably, and we have the quarter system here in Georgia, so they can play junior varsity basketball and still dress with me. So those 5 will probably play some JV, but there'll be some nights where I will throw them in there for a quarter, and a quarter counts as 1 second. So any quarter I get them in there
Yeah.
against them. So there'll be some nights where I'll throw them out there, and if they continue to mature and are able to kind of figure out what we're doing, they're all freshmen and 1 sophomore who didn't play much last year. They've got a chance to be on the floor as well, So I'm perfectly okay with having 12 to 15 guys who I feel like I can play.
How's it been with parents over the years when they hear that you're carrying that many? I mean, obviously, I would think that they'd all like the idea of my son might get to play, but what about those maybe 1, 2, 3, or 4 that in a different system may get a bigger chunk of that playing time?
Yeah. Well, one thing about our area, it's a community school, and we played this way for a long time. So when I left, that was the only time that we didn't play that style. The coach I worked for played this way, and then I took over for him and was there 15 years. And then I went away for 4 years, and now I'm back. This is my 3rd year back. So it's kind of a tradition.
Yeah.
And, that was asked of me. When I came back and they wanted to talk to me about coming back, the first thing they asked me was, are you going to play fast? Are you going to press? And I was like, absolutely. And so, so they were like, okay, well, good. Because a lot of people around here have said they missed that. So,
Yeah.
So I've never had an issue with that. Now, do they want their son to be in that 12, that 10 or 12? Absolutely. But they know, if they get in it, there's going to be a moment where they're going to have an opportunity, certainly, to be a major contributor to what we do.
And I would imagine you're setting up practices throughout the week where there's high level of competition, where all 17 are getting an opportunity to fight. Like, I think when you press, and this is just my opinion, but you're not really set in stone with, hey, these are my 5, 6, or 7 guys at the beginning of the year. Where some of us that if we're not pressing, we're playing we still play fast offensively, but if we're not going that deep into the bench, not that it's lip service towards those other players about like you can't compete and you can still fight for time. That's true, but it's harder to do when you've got your 7 or 8. But when you got 17 guys practicing and they all believe it, I would imagine practices are awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. I think the biggest thing about that, too, is like I script our practices, we plan them out. I plan them out like everybody else, but like you're not going to hear me say, well, first team or second team. When I say give me 5 in a drill, I don't care what the first 5
Yes.
are out there, So from that standpoint, we don't, like you'll never look on the board and I'll say, have the starting 5 in one group and everybody else in another group. No, we just kind of put everybody together. And I stole that barrage shooting drill from Dr. George Barber, and we do that about every other day. And they want to know who's on their team. It ain't always a starting five. It's never a starting five together, actually. I just mix it up because I want you to get accustomed to playing with someone who you may have to play with in a game that may not be a starter.
Will you explain that shooting drill? Can you do that without a board or anything?
Yeah, it's a 3-on-2 drill. You started at half court, and we stole it from Greenville University. And what they do is you attack 3-on-2, and you divide into two teams. So the defense is down on the baseline. So two guys run out and play 3-on-2 against those three guys. You're trying to score, and if they get the defensive rebound, it's dead, and they'll run off the court, and here comes three more offensive guys, two more defensive guys. And once again, we'll play it like that. And what we'll do is we'll play for 4 minutes, and the kids know we kind of spiced it up. The kids know if they can get to 50 points in 4 minutes, then they get a bonus minute. And so they get another minute to try to get as many points as they can, okay? And then after that's over with, we'll flip it. Now the team that was on offense is on defense. Do the same thing again. And those kids know if we get to 50 points in 4 minutes, we get a bonus minute. What I want getting done, I measure. So if we draw a charge is 4 points. So if you're on deep, you can score on defense.
You can score, yeah.
On defense, if you draw a charge, any offensive rebound is 1. And if you make a kick out 3, that's a 4 points. Those kids love that drill, man. And it gets really, really competitive. And, because initially I was worried about playing 3-on-2, guys will just keep those two guys kind of moving like monkey in the middle, just throwing it around. But I tell them, it's hurting you. You can throw it as many times as you want to.
That's time.
Wasting time. Yeah. Yeah, you're wasting time, and you're it's gonna hurt you in the end because they know if they don't get to that bonus minute and get 50 points, they're probably going to lose because the other team's going to, and it encourages 3-point shooting, which we want, and really, really competitive drill. We've got about 10 of those, and that's one of our favorites.
I love that, the idea of the disadvantage in that game of only having 2 defenders, because typically you would look at that on the offensive side of, yes, it's teaching them to make quick decisions and to find the advantage that they have. But because you play the style you play, there's going to be a lot of times where it's 2-on-1, 3-on-2, 4-on-3, and you just have to skirmish. You have to fight. You have to find a way, make it work.
Yeah, you have to figure it out. And we've got some charge drawers who've gotten really good at it. And you dribbling from half court, and it's a 3-on-2 situation. You don't jump stop near the free throw line or 3-point area, and keep going, and you can get ready. They're gonna draw a charge on you. Even when you don't have the ball. So it's been fun.
Going back to something you said about not having a starting 5, it made me think of just a phrase that I use, because in a similar way, I don't want to just think, I don't want my maybe 6 through however many we have to think that practice really isn't for them, or that they can never crack that code. And I don't want to be put in that, that box either, because injuries happen, sickness happens now, especially like more than ever. Sickness happens, and there's different reasons why players aren't available. So cross-training them and having them in different groups is really huge. But one phrase I like to say is, all right, I need 5. Who wants to play? Yes. And not who wants to play in the game, but who wants to be on the floor right now. And I think that one phrase, you get to learn a lot about your team. Who are the alphas? Who are the guys that they don't even know what the game is, but they got to be a part of it? Who are the ones that are a little bit more reluctant to get in the fight and kind of want to know what we're doing first before I volunteer? Right. I like that phrase because, again, and sometimes it ends up being your best players, but there's also those dudes that maybe they don't show up a lot in the score sheet, but, man, they really help your team on the floor.
Yeah, I've got a couple of those guys who are never going to score a whole lot for us. But, one of them he drew 40 charges last year. We're going to play him just because he knows if I'll push it from end to end and throw it to the open man and defend my position, coach is still going to put me out there.
Yeah. Wow. One thing I think your way of playing, and it doesn't just have to be pressing, it could be even running a gun on the offensive side, which I know you do as well. But for us, it is playing fast on the offensive side. We are known for shooting a large volume of threes and really using that as a weapon. But what I thought about was identity. Your program, your players knowing what they hang their hat on. I think that's really important for a team. And the danger of maybe drastically changing your style of play from year to year is that they don't have that, to where the whole community is wanting you to come back so that are you going to press again? Are we going to do that again? Like, I think that's a great goal for coaches to create that identity in their programs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we really tried hard to kind of change. And the year before we got here, they were 16-9. You know, it wasn't like they said, well, oh my gosh, they were shambles. You know, no, it wasn't. The 2 years previous to that, they struggled. But the last year before we got here, they were 16-9, and the guy who coached did a good job. Tom, he's a good friend, and so it wasn't necessarily against him or anything. But I just feel like once you kind of decide who you are, then I think the kids have a tendency to buy in that. Like right now, if I walked in the gym right now and say, okay, we're going to back up and do this, they'd almost look at me like, Coach, what's going on? What's the problem? Because they kind of expect that that's who we are as well. And it almost has to be an arrogance to it that you believe what you're doing. I spoke at a clinic on Saturday, and I told the coaches, it's not ugly, but it is an arrogance that you believe if we play the worst team on our schedule or the best team on our schedule, we're still going to press both of them. So from game to game, we're not going to decide whether we press based on the opponent. The opponent's going to understand that regardless, they're coming with what they come with every game, no matter what. Sometimes that means you're going to lose. Early in the year, particularly, I'm committed to playing a bunch of guys. So I'm going to play number 11 and number 12. And sometimes they're not quite ready. But the only way they're going to get ready is if we throw them out there a little bit. And overall, it's been successful for us because eventually we build that depth that we want to have toward the end of the year.
Coach, I just really appreciate the commitment and the attitude you have towards what you do. And I think that's just a great goal for every coach out there, no matter what style, because I wrote down there's a lot of ways to win. The coach before you was 16-9, doing something different. It's not that running and gunning or pressing every second is the only way to win. There's just so many ways. But I think you better truly believe in it as a coach, be able to teach it in an effective way to where your players understand it. And then once you start to get that belief on their side, your idea of we're going to press against this team and that team, doesn't matter who we play, this is what we do. I believe that builds even more confidence in that style of play. Because if you were going to, all right, this team is, I don't think they have a lot coming back. They haven't. We've seen their scores. We're going to watch a little bit of film. They may be down. We're going to press them. This team is stacked. They got really good players. They haven't lost a game yet. We're going to pull back. That flip-flop creates an idea of, man, we can only do this against some, correct?
Correct. I've told my guys, we playing this way over the years, we beat 10 NBA basketball players. 10 guys who wore NBA uniforms. Ben Shepherd, who's up in Indiana right now, his first-round draft pick from Belmont. We played Ben his junior and senior year and beat him both years playing this way. When he was a really good player, but we attacked him. So I think you have to do that. I think you have to do that if you're going to be successful. The kids have got to know and they got to believe. You can believe all you want to, but if you can't get them to believe, then your belief really doesn't matter because they're not going to buy all the way in. But
right.
I think we finally figured out this is who we are about Christmas last year. And there's a game we lost. We lost in overtime, but we were down 27 in the second quarter, playing about as bad as you can play. And came all the way back and hit a 3 at the buzzer to send the game into overtime. Wound up getting beat 4. But I think our guys thought, man, this is what Coach was talking about. Because I always tell them we have the ability to come back at any point playing this way. And they were able to that night.
The spurtability of it is huge. 15, 20-point deficits, you just don't have to hang your head, or you can't, but you have the ability to have almost this strange optimism. I find the same way with shooting a high volume of threes. Right. Hey, 9 to 10 points, don't freak out. Just keep trusting, keep believing, keep shooting with courage, because we hit a flurry of these like we're capable, and we're right back in it. And I think the amount of possessions that you're able to force, the idea that those guys have been preparing for a day or two for what we do, they don't have the legs that we do, and that it'll wind up in the end. Again, I just think this, you said arrogance, but I agree. There's this belief that your guys probably have of, we can overcome any deficit and beat anybody because of this style.
Yeah, and it's been good for us. And like I said, I think we finally, completely bought in. And the group we've got coming back, I think we have a chance to be really good. And we'll see what it looks like. Football got to come out of football healthy.
Yeah.
If we come out of football healthy, because we got about 7 or 8 out there playing, and have our full group, I think we've got a chance to be really good.
And I do want to talk about how you work in your multiple sport athletes, because that is something, especially, majority of coaches, basketball coaches will deal with that. There are some high schools in, Dallas, Texas, like Allen High School. They've got 7,000 kids. They can find 5 that can hoop, that are straight, or 10 that are straight basketball. But I do want to talk about that. But one thing, you made a really interesting comment and I wanted to ask you if this has happened to you a lot, but you said we may lose. Do you often have people asking you the what if questions? Well, what if you play somebody that does this? What if you see this? Like, what do you do then? Do you get that question a lot?
Yeah, we do. And obviously we have different adjustments in our pressure. What if they got one handler? What if they got multiple handlers? But the base is still the same, and it has to be. And everything has to match. We're going to play fast on one end, so we're going to be aggressive on the other end.
Hard to flip it. Hard to try to do fast and slow.
Yeah, and we did something crazy this summer. We didn't call a single set action all summer. We played 5 out, and we never called anything. So I told them, figure it out. Figure out your offense. And we told them a different 5 out concept every day, and started drilling those every day. And then we worked on our half court defense, and we worked on the press. And then we went home. Okay. And that was kind of it. And it was liberating for me that I didn't have to, come on, run 2, run 7, run, I don't want to do that. There are a lot of coaches who believe, well, unless I'm standing up, calling a play and slowing them down, I'm not really coaching. Well, I disagree with that. I think the less they need me, the better off we're going to be, because they're going to steal it. They're going to steal it, and I can't control what happens after they steal it all the time. So we just have to be ready. We have to have guys who are capable of trying to make plays for one another.
Coach, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but one thing I think I figured out in 11 years here at Faith, besides the last 2 minutes of the game, 8 points or less, or if we're up 8 points or less with 2 minutes, we'll hold because we don't have a shot clock here, and we'll abuse that rule, and we'll make them come guard us. But in 11 years, Coach, on a live ball, if they make it and we get it out and go, or a rebound, a steal, whatever, I don't think I've ever once stopped them. I've never called anything. I've never told them to walk it up. I believe so much in what we do in our transition game that we'll find something better than any play that I could ever call out. And so by doing that, I feel like I take myself out of the game quite a bit on the offensive end from joysticking and controlling everything. I think when you press 2, you take the other coach out of the game as well. Yes. They can't call their stuff. So I do feel like you're getting to that place of ultimate freedom on the floor where we're going to get up and what does the AMAG stand for again?
Attack mode all game. My assistant coach came up with that. We put it on the shirt. We put press hall on the shirt also. You know, we're East Hall, so we put press hall. So we've got a bunch of shirts that say
identity.
That.
Yeah. But I think you're there, Coach, where I miss that part of the defensive side. I think we're more man now than last year's team really wanted to play man, and I listened to them and I let them experiment with it, and golly, it brought out a level of competition in them from the 3-2 zone that we had played almost for 3 years straight. Now we could extend it and bring it back, and it was different to where at least the coach wasn't running their man sets that they love to run the game down more, and their coach was able to orchestrate more. But I think you've got it right where let them run and gun on the offensive end with good concepts and good spacing, and that leads to the same chaos or controlled chaos on the defensive end. I love it.
Yeah, and it's I just like playing that way. Like I said, I don't want to call a bunch of plays, and you know, and even when they played zone this summer, you know, I told them figure it out.
Beat it, beat the zone down beat it down before it's set, but then get in dangerous spots and make the ball work.
You know, when I was TJ Rosine, you know, beat one, engage two, see all four. So we talk about that all the time, and you know, I'll put in I'll probably this year I'll probably have a handful of quick hitters.
I think off dead balls, it's smart when they're back and set, and we're inbounding it. Yeah, I'll orchestrate some action for maybe one of my guys that I want to get going, or a mismatch or something that's there. Yeah.
Now let me tell you, we also run the spread offense from Brad Underwood when he was at Stephen F. He was killing it, running it. We call it quarantine because it was during COVID that I was on one of these clinics one night, and I was still at the previous school, Collins Hill, and I had Travis Hunter. Okay, so he was my point guard. And you know, you're talking about Deion says he's one of one. He's absolutely one of one. Now he was a heck of a basketball player too.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was.
Wow.
He could have. He's like basketball. He was De'Aaron Fox. You know, that explosive athleticism, left-handed, really good off the bounce. So he could have easily been a Division I basketball player as well. Wow. So he played 3 years for me, graduated early, and went off with Coach Prime his senior year. But the first 3 years, he played varsity as a freshman. And he wasn't doing a whole lot with me during the summer. And he wanted to play, and he told me he wanted to play. He'd come to me, and he'd hang out and practice the first week. And then I wouldn't see him again until November or December, depending on how well they did. His last year, they won the state championship in his senior year, and so I didn't see him until December. But you know, we ran that as well, and it's got a little pattern to it, but it also has the freedom to go make a play at any time during that pattern. So we got that too, and we'll keep that there just in case we need it. And we got a couple of little actions we like to run out of it. But as much as I can, we're going to 5 out and try to let them figure things out themselves.
I asked you that question a little bit because that's something that I've gotten a lot over the years. Because Coach, we're offensively so simple. There's really, in fact, United Basketball Plus a few years ago emailed me and said, "Hey, would you want to do a deep dive on your offense?" I was like, "Well, what's a deep dive?" And they're like, "You'll have 45 minutes, you know, to bring up some video and to show some stuff." And I was like, 45 minutes? I don't know if there's that much that we do. Yeah. And there's a great activity for coaches. All of us should pretend that we are going to have to do a 45-minute deep dive on our systems or what we do, because it forced me to put a lot of things down on paper and get some clips. But I realized in that one, we're very simple. We're very much a transition team, and it's all really about spacing. But I get that question quite a bit of, well, what if you play this, or what if you see that? And then the biggest question is, well, what if they're bigger, faster, and stronger than you? My answer to them, unfortunately, is, man, we might lose that night. And I feel like I lose a little credibility every time I give that answer, because what? Like, you don't have an answer? Well, I don't know what style works against bigger, faster, stronger, and like more skilled too. I mean, if they're just a better team, you might lose. I don't care. I don't think there's a style of play that's bulletproof. And so, but does it give yourself a good chance to win and be competitive? Get at the creativity of your players. Do they enjoy being a part of it, or do they like in college we ran flex my first 3 years. Like every day when we'd work on it, it was just like, again, and Coach Bliss would try to have some little wrinkle in it, and I'm sitting there like, it's flex. Like, there's no wrinkle in this. Like, what? But I think that the question of like we might lose, or the answer we might lose, I don't think it's a bad answer, Coach.
No, and the other thing about it, like we don't have any size. So if I let you march it down, I back up, and then let the fact that we don't have any size become even more important. You know, yeah, you might beat me running up and down the floor, but you're certainly going to beat me in the half court. I don't want to lose to you 47-25. I don't. You know,
yes. What's the difference in slowing it down and losing by 10, or speeding it up and losing by 20 or 30? Right. Nothing. Yeah, you're still losing.
There's no difference. And I really just, and it's worked, you know, Collins Hill, the school we were at before we came back here. You know, our first year we were 8-18. I had a coach tell me that's the largest classification. It was 7A at the time. They've since done away with it. But, you know, we got 3,000 kids, you know, and I'm like, you know, we go 8-8, had some embarrassing losses. You know, I had a couple of parents, you'll never be able to get these kids to play that hard. Well, we had a purge. Some of the kids who didn't want to buy in ended up not being part of what we're doing. And then next year we make the state tournament, win 17 or 18 games. And then the next year, we're in the Elite Eight for the first time in 24 years in the school.
Wow.
And everybody's bought in by then, you know, and that was Travis's junior year. And you know, we had a tremendous team, but real fun to watch play. They played so well together. And that coach, who's really a high-level coach, told me, you know, Coach Dix, I was wrong. You know, you got those guys to buy into that. I didn't think you could get them to buy into that, those high-level athletes. And, you know, I just think it's just the way, it's kind of the way you go about things. And if you go about it right and kids buy in, then anything can happen. So.
But you got to give it time for kids to buy in.
We won 6 games my first year coming back here.
Yeah, you got to give it time to buy in. And that's where I think your level of conviction for what you're doing is really tested, is when you have the 8 wins and the 6 wins. Everybody celebrates you on the final 8 or the Elite 8 run, and how brilliant you are, but you remember what it took to get to that point. Right. And that's what some of those, you know, the bandwagoners won't understand, or the people that love your press when it's all clicking and you got the buy-in. But I think for all of us, there are going to be those years of famine. Yeah. And in that time, do you stick with it?
Yeah, here's a funny story. The first year I'm at Collins Hill, Travis Hunter played there. That's one thing the school's known for. The other thing is Maya Moore played there. Okay, so they're celebrating the 25th anniversary of the school. And Maya comes back, and I introduce myself to her. We take a picture. She's talking basketball with me, and she sits right behind our bench. And we're playing one of our rivals, and it is them at the end of the first quarter. And I look, you know, the kids are coming to the huddle, and I take this deep breath, and I look, and for whatever reason, I caught Maya Moore's eyes, and she just looked at me, and she just said, and then puts her head down.
She mouthed, "I'm sorry."
Yeah. And I'm like, me too. You know. So that's my meeting Maya Moore. So it will be tested. It was tested.
Yeah.
Coming back to East Hall that first year, 6-20. I sent a kid off the team during the middle of a game once. I mean, we had some culture stuff we had to get through, and we went from 6 wins to 15 this past year, and I think we've got a chance to surpass that. But like I said, you just got to keep chipping, man. Sometimes you got to keep your head down.
Yeah,
You can't.
Don't look up at Maya Moore. Don't look
you
up.
know.
But you're right on the money. Everybody. So my first year here at Faith, we had 2 games where we hit 25 threes, 2 different games, and one of them we were like 25 for 42 or something like that. Some insane shooting percentage. The other coach came into the locker room after the game with all my guys here, which at first I was like, what's happening? I'm new to TAPS private school world, and he came in and he was like, that was incredible. Just want to let you know that. See, people love that. In a tournament a couple years ago, we were 4 for 46 from 3.
Right.
And coach, nobody was saying how much they love that. In fact, a couple parents wouldn't look me in the eye after, and I had a lot of people who I trust say, maybe you got to do something different. Maybe you got to, no, like I'm evaluating the quality of shot. And out of the 46, I'm good with 42 of them. Maybe 4. Yeah, those were 6s with our shot scale that I would like us to lift and go. But coach, if I'm good with 44 of them, I can't really worry about the outcome. I would imagine the same thing. If you're setting your pressure the way that you want, and rotations are fast and on time, and guys aren't behind or out of place, and they just make some great plays or they shoot well. Like I would imagine teams need to shoot well against you, or at least be willing to shoot threes in transition. And if it works out for them that game, or there's a 33-6 quarter, but if you feel like Gannon Baker said, celebrate the try. If the try is in the right direction, then man, you tip your hat. Next quarter, next game, let's shoot tomorrow. Let's go.
Yeah. And we always talk about it. We're going guns blazing. We're not backing up from who we are. I had a kid go 4 for 19 last year. I mean, but he was one of our guys who shoots it. And
did you feel good about the 19?
Yeah. And he was like, Coach, what's wrong? And I'm like, you're not making it. Just keep playing.
You're human. You're not a machine. It's just percentages. And I would imagine the next few games he probably had some pretty good nights, or he was just coming off of some pretty good nights. The best thing or the worst thing about a night where you make 10 is you've got a game or 2 coming where you're going to come back down and you're going to create your average.
Somebody's got film on you.
Coach, I love the idea too of, I feel like your style of play is a good strategy against bigger teams and sometimes better skilled teams. And I think it's like people, maybe that's the opposite of what I would think initially. But years ago at McKinney High School, it was my 3rd year with the great Wes Watson there. And we had decided he wanted to press kind of a diamond press. And that guy, Kenny Hoffpower, it was kind of his pressing package. And it was really cool, Coach, that if the ball came in on ball side, the on-ball defender would go trap. If the ball was thrown in opposite of him, the on-ball defender would drop back, and so it would be a 2-2-1. So it was either a 1-2-1-1 or a 2-2-1, depending on how that ball was inbounded. It was read and rotate was the 2 words that we used with that. So he wanted to press, and I was really interested in dribble drive and letting it run and gun a little bit more. And we played Prestonwood in a tournament. And Prestonwood had a sophomore. They had a sophomore by the name of Julius Randall. And Julius Randall was 10 as a sophomore, boulders for shoulders. And I remember a guy named Harry was on our team. He was our 6'2" post. And I'm standing next to Harry, and I look over at Harry, and Julius is in front, and Harry's going like this, measuring him up and down. Well, we just made the idea that, hey, guys, this game, we are pressing from beginning to end, makes and misses, no change, and you guys stick with it. At that point in that year, we hadn't shot particularly well. We hit 18 threes, and we beat those dudes by 20. The coach was never a part of the game. They could never talk about doing anything to get these guys. They also had a guy named Zach Peters who played, I think, in Arizona. He was 6'8", but Julius had 45 as a sophomore. But you know what? Like, they lost the game. I don't care how many points you score individually. Right. If it's not enough to beat us, in that game it wasn't. That was like our one claim to fame that year, and I can say that about Julius. But
that's pretty good.
But it gives you a chance against teams that, man, if it's slow and they get to run all their stuff and do what they want, can you guard them? Like, can you stop them?
Yeah, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. But you were asking about the two-sport guys.
Yes.
You know, I think I was flexible with him because I knew the situation. I mean, he was the number one high school football player in the country. You know, everybody's recruiting. You know, Kirby Smart's coming to my games to watch him play, you know, basketball. And that team he was on was loaded. Young man out of Missouri playing quarterback, young man caught a touchdown for Tennessee at tight end. So we had a really talented team. But he told me, Coach, I want to play, but I can't be here. Because he was on, let me tell you, 7-on-7 is the new AAU. You know, I mean, he was flying out all over the country.
Wow.
Playing 7-on-7 football. And I mean, he was on some high-level teams. And I got it. And like I said, that first week he spent with me. He worked hard for me. And then that was kind of it. And then that was kind of the last I saw of him until football was over with. And we worked that out, though, but he was honest with me from the beginning. He wasn't trying to skip out. And there were other guys who played on those teams. I've had some good football, basketball guys at both schools, and so I'm okay with that. I've tried to cultivate a good relationship with all the football coaches that I'm working with.
That's big.
And that's important, too, because I don't want the kids suffering because me and Coach whoever can't get along. The coach I'm with now, Matt Turner, our football coach, and he's got 7 or 8 of my guys. So I've got two choices. I can either work with Matt, or it can be a difficult situation for everybody, especially the kid. And my best player, one of my best players, is a quarterback. And then best wide receiver is my post guy. So I'm invested. I try to be there for those guys. I go to football games and watch them. I've been to 3 out of the 4. And so I make that important, too, for them to know I'm there supporting them. But in the end, you know, they do weight training and football stuff in the morning, 7 to 11. And I push my practice back. And the guys came to me and said, Coach, can we practice later so we can have a chance to rest and eat and get a little nap? And I told them that'd be fine. So we went at 3 every day to offset that. And like I said, we got a good relationship and everything's going the way it should for the kids.
Coach, that's convicting for me to hear. I feel like I'm better than I used to be. Maybe very territorial when I was a younger coach of my guys and wanting them all the time. Coming to a smaller private school helped because we typically do have a lot of guys that play both. But so when I'm saying I think your recipe for how you make that work, I really do think it's a good, we all need to think about, here are my big takeaways is one, being understanding for the individuals and what situations they were in, like his aspirations, you know, and abilities to play at the highest level. And then, but even your other guys that don't, working with them on when practice works best for them, instead of taking the idea of, well, listen, I know you're doing that football thing, but this is when basketball is. And if you want to be in basketball, be here at that time. Like we can do that so easily, not even having to say those words. But if you had had practice at 11, right, you're losing a lot of those guys. And then the idea of whether it's 7 or 8 guys that you have out on the football field, or if it's just 1 or 2, or even none, being at the games, celebrating them, asking those guys the next day how they, if it was a away game, how it went, how'd you play, man, how you doing on the field, like how's your season going, being invested in that. And then the last thing is cultivating those good relationships with the other head coaches. And maybe that's a spot where I'm still not great at. We're not at odds with each other, but I don't know how often we sit around and talk or show a genuine interest. And I think kids pick up on that just the same way that like a divorced family, if that kid's going back and forth and they're not talking about each other or they're not supporting each other, that kid feels that. And we don't want those players to be like that.
Yeah, and he and I had a conversation about it today. We talked about I saw the football coach this morning, and I didn't go Friday night. They were on the road, and I said, how'd it go? And he kind of gave me some. And I did listen to some of it on the radio, and he's flexible with me too, okay. And it's a two-way street. Like if he knows I've got, and I don't do a bunch of play days, but we run the I'm part of the group that runs the NCAA team camps here. So so we have 2 weeks of those. We have a Southeastern one, and then we have a Georgia one. And so he knew my guys were going to be there Friday through Sunday. So he was like, they don't have to come to weight training. They don't have to come to conditioning. I know y'all are going to play. And that kind of flexibility, him meeting me halfway has helped as well. At Collins Hill, I had a good relationship with the football coach. We had one bad moment and we got through it. For the most part, he was always supportive. Whenever he got clothing and gear, he'd make sure I had some. And, those things go a long way in helping the kid. And at our school, with 1,300 kids, I better figure it out, because if I don't, it's going to hurt my program. And it's certainly going to hurt each team if I don't have those kids out there.
With so many kids that are playing football and that you don't get to maybe have in your program until later in December, meeting with players, I would imagine, can be challenging. But even if you have all your guys, I think meeting with players one-on-one, having that time with them is tough for all of us to fit in because of the teaching schedules that you have and all the other things that we're trying to get done throughout the day. How and when do you meet with your players?
Well, I do an exit interview every year. I started that my first year, and I bring in each player and kind of basically say, hey, this is where you are right now. If we had a game tomorrow, you would be. And sometimes those conversations are sobering, because it's not where they quite think they are, And then sometimes, I'm challenging them to be a little bit more. So we'll do that. I explain to them, particularly the football guys, that June is extremely important. We want that month of where we really we get down to the bare bones of what we want to do. We're not putting in a bunch of stuff, bunch of out of bounds, all of that stuff. Like I said, we put 2 out of bounds in this summer, play 5 out, go press somebody.
Impress somebody.
And, so we do that then, and then I'll sit, and then I'll have that same conversation again before the season starts. I tell them where they are. Yeah, right now you're in our top 10. So you may or may not start, but you're going to play significant minutes. And then I'll tell them, hey, you're right now, if I was ranking our players, you're 13 or 14, so you're probably going to play some JV. And I have that conversation again in end of November. But I stay in touch with my football guys throughout. I'll text them after games. I'll bring them in. We'll talk about shoes and all that kind of stuff, what gear we're ordering. Also, my younger JV level players, if they're playing football, he doesn't mind them working out and shooting before school or anything like that. So that helps as well. Of course, you don't want the quarterback in there shooting, on Thursday morning before games on Friday. But we do get some opportunity to speak with them. But those are the 2 major conversations I have, is after the season ends and then right before the season begins the next year.
Coach, I think those are really important conversations to have. They're hard to have because I would imagine for some coaches that are maybe worried about numbers, maybe worried about decisions kids could make, when you're being upfront and honest with them, two things can happen. I guess three. They could do nothing with it and just remain the same. I get that. So that's one option. They may take what you say and say, okay, coach, well, I'm going to work my tail off this summer. I appreciate your honesty and I'm going to make it work and I'm going to fight. I'll change your mind in a good way. But they could also say, coach, if this thing isn't guaranteed or I'm not going to play, I'm just not going to do this. Sometimes that's a positive for them to come to that conclusion. But if it's a culture kid or somebody that you're not really sure, but it's a possibility, I think there takes a lot of courage from a coach to have those conversations. But man, that's really necessary. I think if you have those conversations and you're honest and transparent with them, maybe that helps later on in December and January when that situation is actually happening. It helps their parents because at least he told them. I mean, we knew this was possibly going to happen, right?
And I do tell them you're welcome to share this with your parents. And then I also tell them anything goes in those conversations. So there's nothing off limits. They can ask me. They can ask me, hey, why didn't I play this past year? And they can bring up, and I said, I also asked them this question: is there any situation that happened last year where you feel like I didn't have your best interest in mind? And that, once again, that's a difficult thing for me to hear sometimes, but I can hear, yes, coach, I thought I deserved to play based on this, or this, and I didn't. And, that conversation, but it, like I said, in the end, it is so good to get it out there in the open, because sometimes they're seeing it. They're not seeing it the way you're seeing it. And sometimes when you explain the logic of it, it makes a little more sense to them.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
I love that question. And one that I wrote down on my board, and I think Shawnee Harley did an hour-long Zoom or something about, she's done so many, but I think it was just a coach's Zoom I jumped on. She's a former Canadian women's Olympic coach, and now she runs Winning Matters. And I did a hoops talk with her. It was just incredible. I felt like it was free therapy for me the whole time. It was an interview at all. But one question she said that we should ask, and it's really good, is how can I be better for you? And I think that question, how can I be better for you, really makes them think, okay, like, are there things that I've been holding on to that, and she actually had 4 questions that you could ask, but I really liked that one. But I think that's a great conversation starter. So that, if there is a parent meeting ever, man, your son can't say that I haven't given him an opportunity to tell me how he's feeling, and we've had this moment. But that question, I'm excited to try that out this year in our 10-minute meetings.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and like I said, it has been, I've done the conversations now for 21 years. When I first got the job at East Hall, there was some concerns, even though I was an assistant, and you know how that goes. You slide over that one seat, that's like a mile down the road. And so some of the kids had concerns about, well, am I going to get to play? Are we going to still play the same style? And when I did that, it was like those kids walked in, you could tell it was almost like there was a weight off their shoulders when they walked out of there, that they knew, man, me and coach on the same page. And like I said, I've had everything in those conversations. I've had, coach, I love playing for you. What do we got to do to be better? I've had, coach, I don't want to play no more. Only reason I played this year is because my mama made me play. She told me she'd buy me a car.
You need to know that. You need to know that, right?
And I've had a coach. I think I'm addicted to marijuana. I need help. I've had everything in between. Those conversations have become vital to what we do.
Man.
And I'll use it later on, because I'll say stuff like one of the questions I ask is, who do you think can become play a bigger role for us this coming year? And they'll give me names, and like they've given me this one kid's name this year. And at some point in time, I'm going to push him by telling him, hey, when I interviewed everybody, the consensus was you're that guy who can step up and have a larger role for us. And so he'll know that. Now, I'm not going to tell him specifically who said it or who didn't say it.
Johnny said that you should be doing more right now.
Yeah, he said you weren't very good at all. But Timmy likes you.
Yeah, but Timmy, you're good with him, just so you know.
Yeah, but so that, so I use what I get in those conversations to drive things moving forward, particularly in the fall when we get into everything.
Coach, almost been going for an hour. Before I let you go, I want to get the speed round in. These are going to be quick questions. First thing that pops in your head, blurt it out.
All right.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Cherry vanilla.
Greatest shooter of all time?
That Curry kid over there in Golden State. I think.
This is a newer one. Favorite superhero? If you don't get in, if you're not into that stuff, we can pass.
Oh, Wolverine, man. Wolverine.
All right. Yeah. That's a good one. Top 3 dinner guests that you love to have any time period. Dinner with these 3 people.
Okay. All right. Prince. I'm a huge Prince fan. Okay. I'd like to sit down with Michael Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
Just, and Jesus Christ. I
feel like I got to take him off the table, right? Like, let's just say we already had that dinner.
Okay, we already had that. All right. Well, then my third one would be John Thompson. Yeah, I read his book. I Came as a Shadow. One of the best books I could.
Really?
Man, yeah.
Okay.
Pretty crazy story. His upbringing in inner city DC and where he ended up taking Georgetown to.
A best basketball movie of all time?
Hoosiers.
Texting or talking?
Talking.
You thought about it though.
Yeah, I did.
Texting players. You want to get them
right.
quick.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. In Texas, no shot clock. Do you guys have it?
We do. 35 seconds. Yes.
Well,
it's
okay.
awesome.
Should Texas have a shot clock?
Absolutely. Come on, Texas.
Come on. The basketball here. Like DFW and San Antonio and Houston.
We had a 3-year implementation starting 4 years ago. And it's because this is the second full year. So first year was optional, only tournaments or events. Second year was the region your league got to vote whether y'all did or not. And then the third year was everybody.
How's it been?
Oh, it's been wonderful. And I had coaches calling me because I'm the state basketball chairman for the GACA, the Coaches Association. So I'm getting all these calls about, oh my gosh, every game's going to be 90 to 80. No, they're not.
No.
We still have 47-37 games. We still have.
What's your time?
35 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, most possessions don't go above 35 seconds, even if you're not pressing.
To do that, I said, go back and take a couple of your games last year and see how many times you would have committed a shot clock violation. They call me back and be like, we would have had one. We had one last year total for the whole year.
I mean, the biggest thing is a team that is inferior to the other team not having the ability to take the air out of the ball.
Right.
I mean, they have to play. And so in theory, the better team will probably win more often. But I just got to believe for development, it makes better basketball players.
It does. And I mean, and it also forces you to coach at the end of these games, that last 3 minutes.
Coach, I can't take the air out of the ball. Our 2-game wide doesn't exist anymore.
Right, that's right. I used to have some of that stuff in, and that last 3 minutes, you were in trouble if I was up 8. Well, not anymore. We got to keep scoring.
That's right. Favorite holiday?
Christmas. It's Christmas, yeah.
Up 3 on defense with 5 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
I've lost fouling. One night, Travis was on the team. I tell him to foul. He doesn't. Then he walks up and gets up underneath the guy. The guy gets fouled. They call it a foul. Really wasn't a foul, but they called it one.
Yeah.
He shoots, makes all 3 free throws. Then we try to throw it long to Travis and throw it over his head. They take it out where we threw it out at and make a layup at the buzzer to beat. They scored 5 points in 4 seconds. So, yeah. My worry is this. We're going to give up an offensive rebound. after week 5.
I think that's a good point. Is how's your team with rebounding? Are you the bigger team? Is it equal? Do you have an advantage there? If you're at a disadvantage to rebound the free throw, I don't know. I don't think you do it.
My son's on Steve Forbes' staff at Wake Forest. And so me and him go back and forth about this. And I'm like, yeah, if you got 7'1" and 6'9" down there,
Yeah.
you're going to get the rebound. I said,
And
going to bounce over his head and they're going to score again. So
that's right. And college and NBA shooters, I think we can all agree they're different than high school shooters.
Absolutely.
The average high school shooter, I don't think those dudes will make it. And if they do, it's probably
now watch. You and I are saying that.
That's
you
right.
and I are saying that, and we're both going to get beat on that.
I'm going to text you and be like, it just happened.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
What book would you give someone?
I came as a shadow.
Yeah, I thought that might be it.
John Thompson.
All right, 2 more. Your favorite place to travel?
Love South Georgia, man. We go to Brunswick and Jekyll Island down there. We love that area. I'm taking my team to the Bahamas this year for a tournament, so maybe that'll change that. We're going at Thanksgiving.
The Bahamas may have some things that South Georgia does.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that might change after that.
Yeah. Last one in basketball, and you may have given it away a little bit with your 3 dinner guests, but in basketball, who's the GOAT?
Well, it might. Yeah.
Okay. And maybe not. Maybe it's somebody else for you, but because
for me, it's MJ.
Yeah.
I love LeBron. I'm not one of those guys. Oh, he ain't no good. Oh,
he's on the mountain. He's on Mount Rushmore.
1B. I put LeBron at 1B.
You could say greatest career ever.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Coach, this has been so much fun, man, to get to connect with you again. I love that we had so much, I don't know, what's the connection? I just said connected, but so much camaraderie, I think, back in the day when we met because of the way that you love to play, right in line with how I believe, and wish I could get back to that the pressing ways. But it's just so much fun to see after all that time that you're still doing what you're doing. You're in attack mode all game. And just thank you so much for your time, Coach.
All right, man. I'm glad I got to do this, man. I'm a JAMODI fan, so I'm always listening. I shouldn't say it like
You're
this.
the one.
Some
You're the one.
Some nights you put me to sleep, so I put it in and I go to sleep with it.
It's the soothing voice.
That's right.
Oh man, but just thank you for the style of play for sure, what you do for basketball in Georgia, and how many kids that you've been able to help and influence over the years, man. I just think you're the real deal, and this was just a pleasure for me.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you for growing the game, brother. This has been great, man.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.